Captain Jake Morrison stood on the bridge of his ship and looked out at the most beautiful planet he had ever seen. Zephyria Prime hung in space like a giant blue diamond. Its surface sparkled with crystal formations that caught the light from 3 different suns. After 6 months of traveling through space, Jake and his crew were finally here for humanity's first official meeting with the Xerian Empire. "Captain, we're getting a message from the planet," said Lisa Parker, his first officer. She was young but smart, and Jake trusted her completely. "Put it on screen," Jake said. He straightened his uniform and tried to look professional. This meeting would decide if humans and Zephyrians could be friends or enemies. A face appeared on the screen. The being was tall and elegant, with skin that looked like blue glass. Crystals grew from her forehead like a crown, and they glowed with soft light. Her eyes were large and silver, and when she spoke, her voice sounded like music. "Welcome, humans. I am Minister Vex, advisor to Queen Lilith. Her Majesty is waiting to meet with you in the royal palace. Please follow our ships to the landing area." Jake nodded. "Thank you, Minister Vex. We're honored to be here." The screen went dark. Jake turned to his crew. "Ben, you're in charge while I'm gone. Lisa, you're coming with me. Remember, everyone, this is the most important day in human history. Don't mess it up." Ben Torres, the chief engineer, grinned. "Don't worry, Captain. We'll try not to blow anything up while you're gone." Jake and Lisa took a small shuttle down to the planet's surface. As they flew through the crystal cities, Jake couldn't help but stare. The buildings were made of living crystal that grew up from the ground like trees. They hummed with energy and changed colors as the shuttle passed over them. "It's incredible," Lisa whispered. "I've never seen anything like it." "Just remember to be respectful," Jake said. "These people could crush us with their technology if they wanted to." They landed in a courtyard made of smooth white crystal. Xerian guards waited for them. The guards were tall and thin, wearing armor that looked like it was carved from single pieces of crystal. They moved with grace, like dancers. "Captain Morrison," one guard said, "please follow us to the throne room. Queen Lilith is waiting." Jake and Lisa walked through halls filled with floating crystal formations. The crystals sang quiet songs as they moved through the air. Everything was beautiful and peaceful. Jake started to relax a little. The throne room was enormous. The ceiling was so high that Jake couldn't see the top. Crystal pillars held up the roof, and each pillar was a different color. At the far end of the room sat a throne made from what looked like a single massive diamond. On the throne sat the most beautiful being Jake had ever seen. Queen Lilith was taller than her people, with skin that shimmered like water. Her hair was made of thin crystal threads that moved like liquid silver. The crown on her head was not just crystals, but living light that danced and sparkled. But it was her eyes that caught Jake's attention. They were huge and bright blue, like looking into a clear summer sky. When she looked at him, Jake felt his heart skip a beat. "Approach," Queen Lilith said. Her voice was soft but powerful. It echoed through the huge room. Jake and Lisa walked forward. Jake had practiced this moment 100 times. He knew exactly what to do. He would bow low, say the formal greeting words, and present the gifts from Earth. But as he got closer to the throne, Jake realized how enormous and perfect everything was. He felt small and clumsy. His hands started to sweat. This was the most important moment of his life, and he was terrified of messing it up. "Your Majesty," Jake said, and started to bow. "On behalf of all humanity, I bring greetings," and his foot caught on something. Jake stumbled forward, trying to catch his balance. His arms flew out to steady himself, and his hand hit a crystal sculpture that sat on a pedestal next to the throne. The sculpture was ancient and priceless. Jake could tell just by looking at it. And now it was falling through the air. In slow motion, time seemed to stop. Jake watched the crystal piece fall toward the floor. He knew that when it hit, it would shatter into a million pieces. He had just destroyed an alien artifact during the most important diplomatic meeting in human history. Crystal hit the floor with a sound like breaking glass. Pieces scattered everywhere. The entire throne room went completely silent. Jake stared at the broken pieces. His face turned red with shame. "I'm so sorry, I didn't mean to. I can pay for it." He looked up at Queen Lilith, expecting to see anger or disgust. Instead, she was staring at him with a strange expression. Her crystal crown was glowing with a soft pink light that Jake had never seen before. "You broke the eternal meditation of sorrow," she said quietly. Jake's heart sank. It sounded even worse when she said it like that. "Your Majesty, I am truly sorry. I will do anything to make this right." But Queen Lilith was smiling. It was a small, gentle smile that made her whole face light up. "That sculpture has sat in this throne room for 3,000 years. It was made to honor my ancestors who died in war. Everyone who came here looked at it with respect and fear." Jake didn't understand. "Your Majesty, you are the first person to ever make it less serious, the first person to show me that even old, sad things can change." She leaned forward. Her throne and her crystal crown glowed brighter. "Tell me, Captain Morrison, what are humans really like?" Minister Vex stepped forward, looking worried. "Your Majesty, perhaps we should begin the formal ceremony." "No," Queen La said, never taking her eyes off Jake. "I want to know about humans. I have heard such strange stories about your people. They say you are dangerous and unpredictable. They say you survive things that would kill other beings. They say you turn disasters into victories." Jake relaxed a little. Maybe this wasn't going as badly as he thought. "Well, Your Majesty, we do try to make the best of difficult situations." "Show me," she said, and her eyes sparkled with interest. "Tell me how humans live. Tell me how you think. I want to understand." As Jake began to speak about human culture, he noticed that Queen Lilith's crystals kept changing colors. Pink, gold, and silver lights danced through her crown and hair. He had no idea what the colors meant, but they were beautiful. Behind him, Minister Vex and the other advisors whispered to each other in worried voices. Something was happening that had never happened before, and none of them knew what to do about it. Jake talked about Earth, about human dreams and hopes and fears. Queen Lilith listened to every word, asking questions that showed she really cared about the answers. For the first time since arriving, Jake felt like this meeting might actually go well. He had no idea that Queen Lilith was falling in love with him, or that this would soon become the most complicated diplomatic mission in galactic history. 3 days had passed since Jake's first meeting with Queen Lilith. Each day, the meetings got stranger. Instead of talking about trade agreements and peace, Treaties like Jake expected. The Queen kept asking personal questions about human life. She wanted to know how humans chose their partners. She asked about human families and how they showed love. She was very interested in human dating customs, which she called mate selection rituals. Jake tried to answer professionally, but he was getting confused about why she cared so much about these topics. Captain Lisa said, as they walked to another meeting, is it just me, or does the Queen seem different around you? Jake adjusted his uniform. Different how? Well, yesterday she asked you if humans liked flowers. The day before that she wanted to know if human males enjoyed poetry. And did you notice how her crystal crown thing keeps glowing pink whenever you talk? Jake had noticed the pink glow, but he didn't know what it meant. Maybe that's just how Zephyrian crystals work. Lisa gave him a look that said she thought he was being stupid, but she didn't say anything else. This morning Jake had received a very formal message. Queen Lilith requested a private audience with him in the royal gardens. Minister Vex had delivered the message personally, and he looked very worried about something. A private meeting, Jake had asked. Is that normal for diplomatic visits? Minister Vex's crystals had flickered with nervous energy. No, Captain Morrison, it is not normal at all. In fact, it has never happened before. Please be very careful what you say to Her Majesty. Now Jake was walking through the most beautiful gardens he had ever seen. The paths were made of crystal that felt warm under his feet. Strange alien trees grew in perfect rows, their leaves made of thin metal that rang like bells when the wind touched them. Floating crystal formations drifted slowly through the air above his head. They hummed and sang in harmony, creating music that sounded like a gentle rainstorm. Everything was peaceful and perfect. Queen Lilith was waiting for him beside a small lake that looked like liquid silver. She was wearing a simple dress made of flowing crystal threads, and her crown was smaller than the one she wore in the throne room. She looked younger and more nervous than before. Captain Morrison, she said as he approached, thank you for coming. Your Majesty, Jake said, bowing slightly. I'm honored by your invitation. Queen Lilith gestured to a bench made from smooth blue stone. Please sit with me. I wanted to speak with you away from the formal throne room. Sometimes it is difficult to have real conversations when everyone is watching. They sat down together. Jake noticed that the Queen's crystals were glowing with that soft pink light again. She kept touching her jewelry and looking at her hands like she was nervous about something. Captain Morrison, she began, then stopped. She took a deep breath and tried again. Jake, may I call you Jake? Of course, Your Majesty. Please just call me Lilith. When we are alone like this, I would prefer to be just myself, not the Queen. Jake nodded. All right. Lilith. When he said her name, her crystals glowed brighter for a moment. She smiled, and Jake thought it was the most beautiful smile he had ever seen. Jake, I have been thinking about our conversations over the past few days. You have told me so much about human culture, about how your people live and love and dream. It is all very fascinating to me. I'm glad you find it interesting. Jake said, your people are fascinating to me too. The way you've built a civilization that works in harmony with these crystal formations is amazing. Lilith's face lit up. You really think so? Most visitors only Notice how pretty everything looks. They do not understand that the crystals are alive, that they respond to our emotions and thoughts. They're alive, Jake asked, genuinely curious. Oh yes, watch, Lyra. Leth held up her hand, and the crystals in her jewelry began to glow. The floating formations above them hummed louder, and their light grew brighter. They feel what we feel. When I am happy, they sing. When I am sad, they dim their light to comfort me. That's incredible. Jake said, so right now they're responding to your emotions. Lyreth looked embarrassed. Yes, and lately they have been very confused by what I'm feeling. Jake waited for her to explain, but she seemed to be struggling with something. She stood up and walked to the edge of the silver lake, staring at her reflection in the water. Jake, she said, finally, without turning around, I have never felt this way before. What way? Jake asked, though he was starting to get a bad feeling about where this conversation was going. In all my life, no one has ever treated me the way you do. When other beings meet me, they either fear my power or try to flatter me to get what they want. But you broke my ancestor sculpture and then apologize like you really meant it. You answer my questions honestly, even when they are personal. You look at me like I am just a person, not a queen. She turned around to face him. Her crystal crown was now glowing so brightly that it cast colored light across the water, and when you look at me, I feel warm inside. I feel happy in a way I have never experienced before. My crystals have been glowing constantly since the day we met, and I do not understand why. Jake's heart started beating faster. This was definitely not going in a good direction for diplomatic relations. Lilith, he said carefully, I think what you're describing might be. I know what it is, she interrupted. I have read about it in the old texts. Humans call it attraction, do they not? Jake felt like he was walking through a minefield. One wrong word could destroy any chance of peace between their species. Your Majesty, Lilith, I think there might be some cultural confusion here. No, she said firmly. There is no confusion. I have spent 3 days asking you questions about human mating customs because I wanted to understand my own feelings, and now I understand them perfectly. She walked back to him, her crystals growing brighter with each step. When she stopped in front of him, Jake could see his reflection in her silver eyes. Jake Morrison, she said, and her voice was shaking slightly. I have never asked anyone this question before because I have never needed to, but now I must know the answer. Jake stood up, knowing that whatever she was about to say would change everything. Are you single, human? The question hung in the air between them. Jake stared at her, his mouth open in shock. This was not covered in any diplomatic training he had ever received. What he managed to say, are you single? She repeated, and now her crystals were glowing so brightly that they lit up the entire garden. Do you have a mate, a wife, a girlfriend, as humans call them? Jake's mind raced. How was he supposed to answer this? If he said yes, what would that mean for diplomatic relations? If he said no, would she be offended? Lilith, he said slowly, why are you asking me this? She stepped closer to him. Because I believe I am falling in love with you, Jake Morrison, and I need to know if there is any possibility that you might feel the same way about me. Somewhere in the distance, Jake could hear footsteps running toward them. He turned and saw Minister Vex and several guards rushing through the garden. Vex's crystals were flashing with alarm, and he looked terrified. "Your Majesty," Vex called out, "Your Majesty, your emotional output is visible from orbit. What is happening?" Queen Lilith sighed and turned to face her advisor. "Nothing is happening, Vex. I was simply having a conversation with Captain Morrison, a conversation that has made every crystal on the planet glow pink." Vex demanded, "Your Majesty, whatever this human has done to you, he has done nothing except be kind and honest," Lilith said firmly, "and that is more than anyone else has ever given me." Vex looked at Jake with suspicion and fear. "Captain Morrison, what spell have you cast on our queen?" "No spell," Jake said, raising his hands. "I promise you, I haven't done anything except answer her questions about human culture." "Then why is she exhibiting mating display behaviors?" Vex asked bluntly. The garden went completely silent. Even the crystal formation stopped humming. Lilith's face turned a darker shade of blue, which Jake guessed was the Zephyrian equivalent of blushing. "Vex," she said quietly, "please leave us alone. Your Majesty, I cannot." "That was not a request." Vex bowed reluctantly and gestured for the guards to follow him, but as they left, Jake heard him whispering urgently into a communication device. He was calling for help, and Jake had a feeling that things were about to get much more complicated. The news spread faster than Jake could have imagined. By the next morning, everyone in the galaxy seemed to know that Queen Lilith of the Zephyrian Empire was interested in a human male. Jake woke up to find Lisa shaking him urgently. "Captain, you need to see this," she said, holding up a communication device. "We're getting messages from all over the galaxy." Jake sat up and rubbed his eyes. "What kind of messages?" "Angry ones mostly. The Andromedan Trade Federation wants to know why humans are getting special treatment. The Galactic Council is demanding an explanation, and there are at least 12 different news organizations requesting interviews with you." Jake groaned. "This is a disaster." "It gets worse," Lisa said. "Ben intercepted a message that says Ambassador Krex of the Thaxian Confederacy is on his way here. He should arrive today." Jake knew about Ambassador Krex. Thaxians were a warrior species that valued strength and honor above everything else. They had been trying to form an alliance with the Zephyrians for years, but Queen Lai had always kept them at a distance. "Why is Krex coming here?" Jake asked, though he already suspected the answer. According to the message, he wants to investigate why the Zephyrians are consorting with the galaxy's most dangerous species instead of forming proper military alliances. Jake got dressed quickly and headed to the palace. He needed to talk to Queen Lilith before Ambassador Krex arrived. Maybe they could figure out how to handle this situation without starting an interstellar war. But when he arrived at the palace, he found chaos. Minister Vex was running around giving orders to dozens of servants. Crystal formations throughout the building were glowing with stress patterns, and Jake could hear worried conversations in multiple alien languages. "Captain Morrison," Vex said when he saw Jake, "thank goodness you are here. Her Majesty has been asking for you all morning." "Where is she?" Jake asked. "In the small council chamber, but Captain, before you see her, you must understand something. What happened yesterday has caused complications." Vex led Jake down a hallway lined with floating holographic displays. Each display showed news reports from different planets. Jake saw his own face on several of them, along with pictures of Queen Lyrith. What are they saying? Jake asked. Many things. Some say that humans have developed new ways to manipulate other species through emotional warfare. Others claim that you have used some kind of mind control technology on our queen, the worst. Reports say that this is all part of a human plot to take over the galaxy. Through seduction, Jake stopped walking. That's ridiculous. I didn't do anything except answer her questions politely. I know that, Vex said, but the galaxy is full of species who fear humans because of your reputation. You are known for surviving impossible situations, for turning disasters into victories, for being unpredictable in ways that make other beings nervous. So what do they think I'm doing here? They think you are the most dangerous kind of human of all. One who can make a powerful queen fall in love with him without even trying. They reached the council chamber. Inside, Queen Lyrith sat at a large crystal table surrounded by holographic displays, showing news reports and diplomatic messages. She looked tired and frustrated, but when she saw Jake, her crystals immediately began glowing with that familiar pink light. Jake, she said, standing up, I am so sorry about all of this. It's not your fault, Jake said. I should have been more careful about how I responded to your questions. No, Lylith said firmly, you were honest with me. That is exactly what I wanted. I will not apologize for my feelings, and I will not let other species tell me who I can and cannot care about. Before Jake could respond, alarms began ringing throughout the palace. A moment later, a guard rushed into the room. Your Majesty, the guard said, breathing hard, a Thaxian battle cruiser has just entered our star system. Ambassador Krex is demanding immediate permission to land. Lyrith's crystals turned a dark red color that Jake had never seen before. Send a message to Ambassador Krex. Tell him he may land, but he will follow our protocols and show proper respect. The guard bowed and hurried away. Lilith turned to Jake with an expression that mixed anger and determination. Jake, I want you to know that whatever happens next, I do not regret what I said to you yesterday. An hour later, Jake stood beside Queen Lylith in the throne room as Ambassador Krex marched in with a squad of Thaxian warriors. The Thaxians were impressive and frightening. They were 8 feet tall, covered in dark scales and built like tanks. Their armor was black metal with spikes, and they carried weapons that looked like they could cut through starship holes. Ambassador Krex himself was the largest Thaxian Jake had ever seen. His scales were scarred from countless battles, and his yellow eyes glowed with intelligence and barely controlled aggression. When he spoke, his voice sounded like grinding metal. Queen Lyrith, Craig said, giving a minimal bow that was just barely respectful. I come here on behalf of the Galactic Council to investigate disturbing reports about your relationship with this human. You come here uninvited and make demands. In my own throne room, Lyrialith replied coolly. I suggest you remember where you are, Ambassador. Craig's eyes fixed on Jake. So this is the famous human. He does not look very dangerous to me. Looks can be deceiving, Jake said calmly. He had dealt with bullies before, and he knew that showing fear would only make things worse. Indeed they can, Craig said with a harsh laugh. Tell me, human, what did you do to bewitch our queen? What technology did you use? What weapons? I didn't use anything. Jake said, I just talked to her like normal person. Impossible, humans do not simply talk to people. You are a species of warriors and survivors. You turn everything into a battle to be won. Even your diplomatic missions end in violence or chaos. Queen Lyrith stepped forward. Ambassador Krex, Captain Morrison has been nothing but polite and respectful during his stay here. Polite. Krex laughed again. Your Majesty, let me tell you what this human species has accomplished. They have survived asteroid impacts that destroyed other civilizations. They have turned losing battles into famous victories. They have colonized planets that killed every other species that tried to live there. He activated a holographic projector and began showing images. Here are humans fighting a war against machines that were designed to be perfect soldiers. The humans won. Here are humans surviving on a planet where the atmosphere is poison and the ground is made of acid. They built cities there. More images appeared. Here are humans who were attacked by a species of hive-mind insects that had conquered 12 different star systems. The humans not only survived, they made friends with the insects and taught them to appreciate art and music. Queen Lylith watched the images with growing fascination rather than fear. These stories only make me more impressed with Jake's people. That is exactly the problem. Craig roared. You should be afraid of them. Every species in the galaxy knows that humans are dangerous because they do impossible things and make it look easy. What do you want me to do, Ambassador? Lylith asked. Reject Captain Morrison because his species is successful. I want you to understand what you are dealing with, Craig said. This human has not won your affection through charm or good looks. He has done it by being exactly what makes humans so terrifying. He has made you want to face the impossible challenges with him. Jake realized that Ambassador Krex was right, but not in the way he thought. Queen Lylith wasn't attracted to Jake because he was human. She was attracted to him because he represented everything she had been missing in her life. Adventure, equality, the chance to be seen as a partner instead of just a ruler. Ambassador Krex, Jake said, what exactly are you proposing? Craig smiled, showing teeth like metal blades. I propose a test. If humans are truly as dangerous and capable as their reputation suggests, then you should be able to prove it. I challenge you to single combat according to ancient Thaxian law. Queen Lyrith's crystals flared with alarm. Absolutely not. I will not allow. The challenge has been issued in front of witnesses. Krex interrupted. According to galactic law, it cannot be withdrawn. If this human defeats me, I will acknowledge that humans deserve respect and alliance. If I defeat him, then Queen Lylith will understand that humans are not as impressive as they pretend to be. Jake looked at the massive alien warrior and tried not to show how terrified he was. There was no way he could win a physical fight against a Thaxian, but if he refused the challenge, it would make all humans look weak and cowardly. What are the terms of this combat? Jake asked. Traditional Thaxian trial by combat. Craig said, no weapons except what we can make or find. The battle continues until one of us cannot continue fighting. Queen Lylith grabbed Jake's arm. Jake, you cannot do this. He will kill you, Your Majesty, Jake said softly. If I don't accept, it will cause problems for both our species. Sometimes you have to take risks for the greater Good, but I cannot lose you, she whispered, and her crystals dimmed with sadness. I have only just found you. Jake looked into her silver eyes and made a decision. That would change everything. Lyrath, I accept Ambassador Crex's challenge, but I want to modify the terms. Craig laughed. Humans always try to change the rules when they realize they cannot win. Actually, Jake said with a smile, the situation was worse than anyone had first realized. The star in the Epsilon system was not just having normal solar flares. According to the data streaming in from deep space sensors, it was beginning to collapse in a way that would create a massive explosion. 3 planets with billions of people would be destroyed in less than 48 hours. Jake, Ambassador Crex, and Queen Lurlith stood in the palace's command center, watching holographic displays that showed the dying star. Scientists from multiple species were sending reports, and all of them said the same thing. There was no known way to stop what was happening. This is impossible, Ambassador Craig said. Studying the data, the star's core is collapsing faster than our models predict. Even if we sent every ship in the Thaxian fleet, we could not evacuate all the people in time. Queen Lurlith's crystals were dim with worry. The Zephyrian Empire has offered to help with evacuations, but our ships are not designed for transporting billions of beings. We might save a few million at most. Jake was quiet, thinking hard. Traditional approach would be to try to evacuate as many people as possible and accept that most would die, but that wasn't good enough. There had to be another way. What's causing the star to collapse so quickly? Jake asked. Zephyrian scientist appeared on one of the displays. Captain Morrison, the star's magnetic field has become unstable. It is creating a feedback loop that is accelerating the collapse. We believe it may have been caused by industrial mining operations that damage the star's outer layers, so the collapse isn't natural, Jake said. It's been caused by artificial changes to the star's structure. That is correct, the scientist confirmed, but the damage is too extensive to repair. The magnetic field chaos cannot be stopped. Ambassador Craigs crossed his arms. Human, if you have some brilliant plan, now would be the time to share it. Jake was still thinking. In his mind, he could see the problem like a giant puzzle. The star was collapsing because its magnetic field was out of control. Traditional solutions focused on fighting the collapse or running away from it. But what if there was a third option? What if we don't try to stop the collapse? Jake said suddenly. Everyone in the room stared at him. Queen Lyreth's crystals flashed with confusion. Jake, what do you mean? What if we control it instead? Instead of trying to prevent the star from collapsing, what if we make it collapse in a specific way that doesn't destroy the planets? Ambassador Cree laughed harshly. That is the most ridiculous thing I have ever heard. You cannot control a stellar collapse. Actually, Jake said, I think we can, but not with any single species technology. We would need Zephyrian crystal technology to create harmonic frequencies, Thaxian military precision to coordinate the timing, and human engineering creativity to design something that has never been tried before. Queen Lilith leaned forward. Explain. Jake activated the holographic display and began drawing diagrams in the air with his hands. The star's magnetic field is chaotic because the mining operations created random Disturbances. But what if we could create organized disturbances? What if we could use the Zephyrian crystals to generate specific frequency patterns that would guide the magnetic field? Instead of fighting it, the crystals could do that, Larth said slowly. Our largest resonance crystals can affect electromagnetic fields across vast distances, but how would that help? We create a controlled collapse, Jake explained. Instead of letting the star explode randomly, we guide the magnetic field to make it collapse inward in a stable pattern. The star becomes smaller and denser, but it doesn't explode. Ambassador Craig studied the diagrams. Even if that worked, how would you get the crystals close enough to the star to affect it? That's where Thaxian military technology comes in. Jake said, you have ships that can survive in extreme environments. We load them with Zephyrian crystals and position them around the star at precise coordinates. The crystals work together to create a resonance pattern that guides the collapse and the human contribution. Crax asked with skepticism. The coordination, Jake said, this has never been attempted before. We need to calculate exactly where to place each ship, exactly when to activate each crystal, and exactly what frequencies to use. One small mistake and the plan fails. Queen Larry was studying the displays with growing excitement. Jake, this could actually work, but it would require perfect cooperation between our three species. Which brings us back to our original challenge. Ambassador Craig said, you propose that working together is better than traditional military strength. I propose that some problems are too big for any one species to solve alone. Jake replied, humans learned that lesson a long time ago. The strongest thing about us isn't that we never give up. It's that we know when to ask for help. For several minutes no one spoke. They all studied the data and Jake's proposed solution. Finally, Ambassador Crex nodded grimly. It is dangerous and has never been tested. The chance of failure is high. Yes, Jake agreed. If it fails, we will all die along with the billions of people we are trying to save. Yes, it requires me to trust both you and Queen Lilith completely. Yes, Ambassador Crex was quiet for another moment. Then he smiled, and for the first time since Jake had met him, it was not a threatening smile. It is exactly the kind of impossible plan that humans are famous for. Craig said, I accept your proposal, Captain Morrison. Let us see if three species working together can accomplish what none of us could do alone. The next 36 hours were the most intense of Jake's life. Ships from three different species converged on the Epsilon system. Zephyrian crystal ships carried massive resonance crystals that hummed with power. Thaxian warships provided protection and precise positioning capabilities. Human vessels coordinated the entire operation and calculated the complex timing sequences. Jake found himself working directly with Ambassador Crex and Queen Lilith to coordinate their fleets. It was strange how quickly they learned to work together when millions of lives depended on it. Thaxian Formation Alpha is in position. Craig's reported his ships had moved into a perfect geometric pattern around the unstable star. Zephyrian crystals are charged and ready. Lilith confirmed her crystal ships glowed with stored energy that was visible even from space. Jake checked his calculations one more time. All right, everyone, we get one chance at this. If the timing is off by even a Few seconds, the whole plan falls apart. Captain Morrison came a voice from one of the Thaxian ships. The star's collapse is accelerating. We need to act now. Beginning crystal resonance in 3, 2, 1. Activate. The Zephyrian crystals began to sing. It started as a low humming sound that Jake could feel in his bones, then grew into a complex harmony that seemed to fill all of space. Crystals on different ships sang different notes, but together they created a pattern that was incredibly beautiful and powerful. On the holographic displays, Jake watched as the star's chaotic magnetic field began to change. Instead of random fluctuations, the field started to move in organized waves that followed the crystal song. It's working, Queen, Lilith whispered. The star is responding to the resonance, but Jake was watching his timing calculations. We need to increase the frequency in Sector 7 and 12. The collapse is happening faster than we predicted. Adjusting. Now came the reports from the Zephyrian ships. 4 hours they worked together, making tiny adjustments to keep the tow stars collapse under control. Jake coordinated the timing. Craig's positioned the ships with military precision, and Lyrath directed the crystal resonance within artist's touch. Finally, as they watched the displays, the star completed its controlled collapse. Instead of exploding, it had compressed into a small, stable white dwarf star. The 3 planets were safe. We did it, Queen Lilith said, and her crystals exploded with golden light that was visible throughout the command center. We actually did it. Ambassador Krex was staring at the displays in amazement. In all my years as a warrior, I have never seen anything like this. We turned a stellar collapse into a controlled renovation. Jake felt exhausted but proud. It worked because we all contributed what we were best at. None of us could have done it alone. Krex turned to face Jake and gave him a formal Thaxian salute. Captain Morrison, I admit that I was wrong about humans. You are not dangerous because you are violent or unpredictable. You are dangerous because you make everyone around you capable of doing impossible things. That's not just a human trait. Jake said, that's what happens when different people work together and trust each other. Queen Lilith walked over to Jake and took his hand. Her crystals were still glowing with happiness, and Jake could see his reflection in her silver eyes. Jake, she said softly, you have shown me something wonderful today. Not just that humans are brave and clever, but that working with someone you care about can accomplish miracles. Ambassador Krex cleared his throat. Your Majesty, Captain Morrison, I believe our challenge has been completed. It is clear that Captain Morrison's approach of cooperation and creative problem solving is indeed superior to traditional military solutions. He paused and looked directly at Queen Lyrath. I also believe that your feelings for this human are based on sound judgment. Any being who can coordinate 3 different species to save billions of lives is worthy. 6 months later, Jake stood on the observation deck of a space station orbiting Earth, watching as Queen Lyrath experienced her first Earth sunset. Her crystals were glowing with soft, warm colors as she watched the sun sink below the horizon of the blue and green planet. It is so different from Zephyria Prime, she said, her voice filled with wonder. Your star gives off such warm light, and those white formations in your atmosphere. Clouds, Jake said with a smile, they're made of water vapor. water vapor that floats in the sky, Lyrith repeated like she was trying to understand magic, and sometimes this water falls down as rain. That's right, and in winter it can freeze and fall as snow, Lilith's crystals shifted to excited blues and greens. I want to see snow. Can we visit Earth? During your winter season, we can visit Earth whenever you want, Jake said. You're the official Zahirian cultural ambassador now. Remember the last 6 months had changed everything after the successful mission to save the Epsilon system. News of the cooperation between humans, Xerians, and Thaxians had spread throughout the galaxy. Other species that had been suspicious of humans began to reconsider their opinions. The Galactic Council had officially recognized the new three-way alliance, which they called the Harmonic Coalition. Ambassador Krex had returned to Thaxian space as a hero, telling stories about how humans could turn enemies into friends and impossible problems into opportunities. But the biggest change had been in Jake and Lilith's relationship. Instead of rushing into romance, they had decided to take time to really understand each other's cultures and personalities. Lilith had spent 3 months on Earth, living in different cities and learning about human customs. She had been fascinated by everything from pizza to jazz music to the way humans argued about sports. Her favorite discovery was human comedy movies, which made her crystals flash with bright, happy colors. Jake had spent an equal amount of time on Zephyria Prime, learning about crystal harmonics and Zephyrian art. He had discovered that Lilith was not just a beautiful queen, but also a brilliant scientist who had designed many of the crystal technologies that made her civilization possible. They had also worked together on several smaller diplomatic missions, helping other species resolve conflicts through cooperation rather than force. Jake had learned that Lyrialith was brave, intelligent, and had a sense of humor that matched his own. Jake, Lilith said, turning away from the view of Earth, I have something important to ask you. What is it? Jake asked, though the serious tone in her voice made him nervous. These past 6 months have been the happiest of my life. I have learned so much about humans and about myself. But I need to know, where do we go from here? Jake had been thinking about the same question. What do you mean? I mean, are we simply friends who enjoy each other's company? Are we colleagues working together on diplomatic missions? Or are we something more? Lilith's crystals were glowing with a mixture of hope and nervousness. Jake could see that this question was as important to her as it was to him. Lilith, Jake said carefully, what do you want us to be? She stepped closer to him. I want us to be partners in everything. I want to continue working together to help our species understand each other. I want to keep exploring the galaxy and solving impossible problems, and I want to do it all with you beside me. That sounds like a pretty serious commitment. Jake said it is. In Zephyrian culture, when we choose a life partner, it is not just about romantic love. It is about choosing someone to share adventures with, someone to face challenges with, someone to grow old with. Jake felt his heart racing. And you think I'm that person for you? I know you are, Lyralith said, and her crystals erupted with brilliant gold and silver light. You are brave enough to break ancient sculptures, smart enough to save solar systems, and kind enough to treat an alien queen like a normal person. You make me want to be the best version of Myself. Jake reached out and took her hands. Tea felt warm and slightly tingly from the crystal energy that flowed through her. Lyrith, he said, I care about you more than I've ever cared about anyone. These past 6 months have shown me that we work well together, that we make each other better, and that we can face anything as long as we're facing it together. But Lilith asked, sensing hesitation in his voice, but I want to make sure we're doing this for the right reasons. Not because it's romantic and exciting. Not because it would be good for diplomatic relations, but because we genuinely want to build a life together. Lyrith smiled, and Jake thought it was the most beautiful sight in the galaxy. Jake Morrison, are you proposing that we take our relationship seriously and see where it leads us? I guess I am, Jake said, grinning back at her, though I should warn you, dating a human comes with certain complications, such as, well, we're stubborn, we argue about silly things, and we have this habit of getting into trouble even when we're trying to be careful. Those are not complications, Lyrith laughed, her crystals sparkling with amusement. Those are some of the reasons I fell in love with you in the first place. Before Jake could respond, the communication system on the observation deck chimed with an incoming message. The holographic display showed Ambassador Kree, who looked like he was trying not to smile. Captain Morrison. Queen Lyrith, Craig said formally, I hope I am not interrupting anything important, just having a conversation about the future. Jake replied, what can we do for you, Ambassador? I'm calling to inform you that the Galactic Council has just approved a new initiative. They want to establish cultural exchange programs between multiple species based on the success of your work together. That's wonderful news, Lyrith said. Indeed, they are also requesting that you two serve as the coordinators for this program. It would involve traveling to different worlds, helping species learn about each other, and solving diplomatic problems through cooperation. Jake and Lilith looked at each other. This was exactly the kind of work they both wanted to do. There is one small complication, Krex continued. The job would require you to work together constantly for the next several years. The Council wants to make sure that your personal relationship will not interfere with your professional duties. Lyrith's crystals flashed with indignation. Our personal relationship is what makes us effective at this work. I agree completely, Craig said, and now he was definitely smiling, which is why I recommended you for the position. I told the Council that the galaxy needs more partnerships like yours. Thank you, Ambassador, Jake said. When do we start? As soon as you are ready. Your first mission will be to help the artistic Melodian species and the logical Synthetican species establish a cultural exchange. They have been trying to understand each other for decades, without success. After Craig signed off, Jake and Lilith stood together looking out at the stars. Somewhere out there were countless species, all trying to understand each other and find their place in the galaxy. So Jake said, it looks like we're going to be working together for a long time. I can think of worse fates, Lilith replied, leaning against his shoulder. Though I should warn you, dating a Zephyrian queen also comes with complications, such as my emotions are visible to everyone through my crystals. I have a tendency to glow when I'm happy, and I still don't understand why humans put pineapple on pizza. Jake laughed. Those are not complications, those are some of the reasons I'm falling in love with you. Liberalith's crystals exploded with brilliant light that was visible throughout the space station. Several passing ships sent messages asking if everything was all right. I should probably learn to control that, Lilith said, looking embarrassed. Don't you dare, Jake said, pulling her closer. I like knowing exactly how you feel. A year later, Jake received a message from Earth's diplomatic corps. They were sending more ambassadors to other worlds, hoping to replicate his diplomatic success. The message asked for advice on how to handle first contact situations. Jake wrote back with a simple reply: be honest, be respectful, and be prepared for anything. Sometimes the most important diplomatic breakthroughs happen when you least expect them. He sent the message and then went to find Lilith, who was in their shared laboratory working on a new crystal technology that would help translate emotions between different species. Her latest project was a crystal that could help beings understand what others were feeling, even across species barriers. How's the emotion translator coming along? Jake asked. Almost finished, Lilith said, holding up a small, perfectly clear crystal. This should help species who don't express feelings the same way understand each other better. That could revolutionize galactic diplomacy, Jake said. Impressed, that's the idea. Though I should mention I tested it on myself, and apparently my emotions are so strong that the crystal overloaded and started glowing like a miniature star. Jake grinned. That sounds about right. They worked together in comfortable silence. For a while, each focused on their own projects but aware of the other's presence. This was what happiness felt like. Jake realized, not constant excitement or drama, but the quiet satisfaction of working alongside someone you love toward goals you both believed in. Outside their laboratory windows, the stars waited. There were new species to meet.